It was dark. So dark that she couldn't even see the end of her own nose on her face, let alone tell where she was. And she couldn't move at all. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't even scream for help. It felt as if she had been stripped of all her muscles and she was dangling in mid-air. She tried to even lift a finger, but the only part of her body that was responding to anything was her heart, pounding in fear and panic. Then, out of nowhere, a tiny faint dot of light appeared in the midst of the inky blackness surrounding her. She thought at first that her eyes were just playing tricks on her, but she was proven wrong as the pinpoint of light steadily grew larger and brighter. "What is it?" she thought to herself as she frantically tried to move, but still to no avail. She simply wasn't even in control of her own body. Soon though, the question of what it was answered to her as it continued to grow larger and more light started to appear, almost in a circular form, giving it some sort of physical shape. Shortly after that, a reflective surface became clear. A sort of dull metal it appeared to be. If she had been able to move, she still would have been frozen at this point, wide-eyed in amazement and fear, as she finally realised what she was seeing. It was a giant UFO, and it was headed straight at her at a rather fast speed, and she still couldn't move. What good would it do anyways, she thought. It's too late now. She could do nothing but stare into the lights on the craft that was speeding towards her, and prepare for the worst once it hit her. Then she was inside the ship. She didn't know how she got there, or why she was there, but she knew that's where she was. The same metal that she had seen on the outside formed the walls, floor, seats and panels, of which had alien-looking controls and writing on them. Above them, blue, transparent screens displaying what appeared to be foreign star charts glowed softly. On one of them, what looked like an intricate compass shifted slightly as the soft roar of the vessel's engine revved a bit, and then died back down to a quiet vibration. Then, as she focused on another screen to see what was on it, she noticed that on the other side of it, across the room, there were 3 cloaked figures. And they were alive, as 2 of them were moving, and the third and tallest seemed to be staring out of the large window in front of it. She tried to strain her eyes to see them better, but one of the other 2 suddenly turned around and looked directly at her, revealing to her that it was far from being human. Jenna, wake up!" Abby yelled frantically as she shook her friend's shoulders. "Jenna, wake up, damn it!" Abby's twin brother Alex chipped in from behind her. "Hey, watch your mouth," Abby and Alex's father Brandon said, casting a glare towards his son. He then turned his attention back to Jenna as she was finally woken up. She sat straight up like a spring that had been let loose, darting her eyes around frantically, scrambling out of her sleeping bag a bit. "It's okay, Jen, it's just us. Calm down," Abby assured her, reaching out to grab Jenna's shoulder again. "You were having one heck of a nightmare there, kiddo," Brandon said teasingly. "Woke us all up with your yelling," he finished, chuckling lightly. Jenna turned her head to look at him, her eyes still wide, and she was surprised she could move her muscles now. It was supposedly nothing but a nightmare, according to them, but it felt so real to her. "What were you dreaming about, anyways?" Abby asked, a concerned look still on her face. Jenna looked back to her and quietly replied, "I don't even remember now," she lied, not wanting to scare her friends. "Ah, come on, you're no fun," Alex teased her. "Hey, she was probably dreaming about being on some alien planet that was being blown up or something," he said, laughing as he continued his teasing, getting both Abby and their father to laugh about it as well. Jenna, however, couldn't bring herself to laugh after what she had just dreamt. As their laughter died down, Brandon reached into his pocket and pulled out his cell phone, flipping the screen open to check the time. "Oh, hey, it's almost time for the shower to start anyways. They said 4 a.m. It's 10 till now." He shut off the alarm he had set to wake them and put the phone back in his pocket, and the four of them got up from their sleeping bags and started to set up their telescopes and night vision cameras to watch the meteor shower with. Jenna, however, was still evidently trying to shake off the nightmare she had had. "Jen, you okay?" Abby asked, lightly bumping her arm against Jenna's. Jenna looked up from adjusting her telescope towards her friend, but seemed to be trying to avoid eye contact as she quietly replied, "Yeah, I'll be fine. Just trying to get these images out of my head is all." "You sure? You still look pretty shook up. Was it really that bad?" Abby continued questioning. "No, not really. It just felt so real," Jenna answered, pausing a moment to look towards the ground before turning her attention back to her telescope. "What are you?" Jenna tried to ask the being that stared at her with rather large, pitch-black eyes set in a thin, grey-skinned face. She still couldn't move though, so it came out as nothing but a thought in her mind. However, just as the thought was finished, the hooded figure started towards her. As it walked closer, its swaying robe gave hint at a very slender and very tall body, so tall that as it stopped right in front of her, its dark eyes looked down at her from a few feet above her 5'10" figure. Her heart rate began to pick up again, and then the being slowly raised a long, skinny hand from under its robe towards her face, making her heart beat even faster. "Jenna, check this out! I think it's a UFO!" Abby suddenly cried out, snapping Jenna awake from her daydream with a startled clamour. Abby looked away from the computer screen she was sitting in front of with a raised eyebrow to see what was with Jenna's commotion. "You okay over there?" she asked her from across the desk. "Yeah, must have just fallen asleep," Jenna replied hesitantly, the image of the dream still in her mind. "Well, yeah, sorry I scared you, but, well, come here. You gotta see this," Abby said with excitement as she motioned Jenna to the other side of the table with one hand. "It's okay," Jenna said quietly, as she got up from her seat and headed over to stand beside Abby, resting one hand on the desk and leaning down towards the screen. "What's up?" she asked in a slightly groggy voice. "Okay, so check this out. I think your camera actually caught a UFO last night," Abby answered as she pressed the play button to show Jenna. As the screen played back the recording of the stars and shooting meteors, Jenna focused her eyes to try and see something out of place that would have made her friend think such a thing. And then she saw it. Amongst the meteors streaking through the sky, a dot of light suddenly appeared right in the middle of the screen. It hovered there for a few seconds, and then quickly shot up towards the top of the screen before flashing brightly, and then it disappeared completely. Once she saw it, Jenna almost jumped, her eyes widening a bit, and her heart began beating almost as fast as it had been in her dream. "Did you see it?" Abby asked excitedly, suddenly distracting Jenna from the monitor. "Yeah, it was probably just a weather balloon or a satellite, possibly even a plane," she replied sort of quietly as she stood back upright and headed back to her seat. "With that speed? And those sort of movements? I don't think so," Abby commented as she watched Jenna sit back down with a slight thud. "What's wrong with you?" she asked, her eyebrows furrowing. "Nothing. I just don't think it was a UFO," Jenna answered, not wanting to freak out her friend with her thoughts of whether this was all just weird coincidence or not. "Are you serious? Jenna Landrose, avid believer in extraterrestrials, who paints abstract shows of the futuristic world, inhabited by humans and aliens alike, as seen in her mind, doesn't even believe she just caught an obvious UFO on camera?" "You don't know that's what it was, Ab," Jenna replied as she slouched back into the chair with a frustrated sigh. "No, but I do know that planes, satellites and weather balloons don't move like that or flash that brightly, and they sure as hell don't appear and disappear into thin air," Abby said, crossing her arms over her chest. Just then her brother came into the room, looking back and forth between the two of them with a confused look on his face. "What's going on? I could hear you two bickering about something all the way downstairs," he said as he adjusted his glasses with one finger. "Jen recorded a UFO on her night vision cam last night, but doesn't believe it wasn't a UFO, Jenna said, cutting Abby short. What's this? Doesn't believe it was... But my sister does, Alex chirped as he looked back to Jenna. You're a regular freaking Shakespeare, Alex, Jenna replied sarcastically to Alex's rhyme, laughing slightly. Yeah, guess I am, aren't I? He quirked back, laughing as well. Anyway, let's see Jenna's UFO, shall we? He finished as he leaned towards the screen in front of his sister as Jenna rolled her eyes and sighed lightly. Abby looked over at Jenna from her seat again before rewinding the recording and pressing the play button to show it to her brother, who watched it with seemingly deep inquisition. Yeah, that's definitely a UFO, Alex said as he stood up straight once he saw the oddity in the recording. Are you serious? You think it is too? Jenna asked, almost snapping the question at him. Nah, Alex replied with a laugh and a shrug of his shoulders. I don't know what it was. Abby picked up a piece of paper off of the desk at this and crumpled it into a ball, throwing it at his head. You're no help, she groaned as he dodged the ball of paper with a smirk on his face. Hey, it could be anything, he replied. He then looked back to Jenna, who wasn't even paying attention to the two anymore. Leave it to her, though, to catch it on her camera if that's what it was. You almost sound jealous, Alex, Abby teased him. No way. Just pointing out it was our neighbourhood spacehead who got it, he exclaimed, grinning wide enough to show his braces. Alex! Abby scolded him as Jenna turned her attention back to them. Sorry, Jen. No offence, you know. He stepped over to her and wrapped his arms around her shoulders, rocking her side to side a bit. You know it's just an affectionate nickname we have for our alien nerd, he teased to her. Jenna simply shrugged him off of her shoulders, though, and he got up to head for the door as Abby scowled at her brother. As Jenna walked home along the suburban road, the chilled autumn air whipped at her long, sandy blonde hair, making her tug at her jacket to wrap it more tightly around her. No matter how snugly she pulled it against her, though, she could not shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every now and then she would turn around, thinking Abby and Alex were following her to play a prank. But as her eyes darted around, no one could be found for as far as she could see. Her heart started to beat faster as panic began to set in after a while, and she quickly turned back around and quickened her pace, though the feeling still remained. Convinced at this point that she was going crazy, she pulled out her cell phone and tried to call her father, but the line was full of nothing but garbled static. Dad? Dad? Hello, Dad? She frantically yelled into her phone. She had never had this sort of problem with her phone on this road before. Then, out of the corner of her eyes, she saw a large black figure dart through the trees. And when she quickly turned to see what it was, she dropped her phone and screamed. Jenna? Hello? Jen? I can't hear you, Mike said into the phone as the static cut at Jenna's voice. He strained to hear her, but couldn't make out anything that she was saying. But then he heard a loud thud on the other end of the line, followed by a scream of terror. His eyes going wide in shock, he began to panic and shoved the phone in his pocket, not even thinking to end the call, and ran out the door. Jumping into his car, he fumbled for the keys, as his nerves began to make him tremble out of worry for his daughter. Once he finally got the key in the ignition, he started the car up and peeled out of the driveway with his tyres screeching, and turned to head towards the Morgan's house, where he knew Jenna was visiting. As he sped down the long straight road, however, he brought the car to a screeching halt as he saw something small shining in the dim November sun on the middle of the road. He pulled himself out of the vehicle and ran over to it, and when he realised what it was, his heart wrenched with fear. It was Jenna's cell phone.